The deep space scanner beeped softly in the quiet control room of the exploration vessel Starfinder. Navigation Officer Roth leaned forward in his chair and squinted at the display screen. A small blue and green planet appeared on the monitor, spinning slowly in the darkness of space around a yellow star. "Captain Volan, we have found another world," Roth called out across the bridge. "Third planet from the star. Water and land masses detected. Atmosphere shows oxygen and nitrogen mix suitable for carbon-based life." Captain Volan walked over to examine the readings. His forearms moved gracefully as he operated different control panels at the same time. Like all members of his species. Volan stood nearly 8 feet tall with gray skin and large black eyes that could see clearly in low-light conditions. The exploration fleet had been searching this sector for months, cataloging new worlds for the Galactic Council. Any signs of intelligent life? Volan asked as he studied the planet's surface features through the long-range viewing system. "Scanning." "Now, sir," Roth replied, his fingers dancing across the sensor controls. "I am detecting electromagnetic signatures consistent with basic technology. Radio waves, primitive satellite communications, and what appears to be electrical power generation on a planetary scale." Volan nodded slowly. Another developing world with a young civilization. The Galactic Council would be pleased with this. Discovery. Young civilizations were always useful, either as sources of raw materials and labor, or as new members of the galactic community if they proved advanced enough to be worth the trouble of proper contact procedures. "Send the standard survey probes," Volan ordered. "Full biological and technological assessment. I want to know what kind of species we are dealing with here." 3 sleek silver probes launched from the Starfinder and streaked toward the blue planet. Each probe was equipped with advanced scanning equipment that could analyze everything from atmospheric composition to the genetic structure of plant and animal life. Most importantly, they could observe the dominant intelligent species and determine their threat level and potential usefulness. The probes entered the planet's atmosphere silently and began their work. High-resolution cameras captured images of large settlements with geometric structures that stretched for miles in every direction. The beings who built these cities appeared to be bipedal mammals, roughly 6 feet tall with soft pink or brown skin and no visible natural weapons like claws or fangs. Roth watched the incoming data with interest. The dominant species appears to be omnivorous mammals, sir. They have built extensive agricultural systems and seem to live in large social groups. Population estimates suggest several billion individuals across the planet's landmasses. "Any military technology?" Volan asked. "Basic projectile weapons and combustion-powered vehicles," Roth replied after reviewing more scanned data. "That would pose a threat to our fleet. Their most advanced weapons appear to be chemical explosives and simple kinetic projectiles. No energy weapons detected, no force fields, no faster-than-light capability." Captain Volan examined images of the planet's inhabitants as they went about their daily activities. He saw them tending crops, caring for young, and engaging in what appeared to be peaceful commerce in their city centers. Many were gathered around devices that seemed to be used for entertainment and communication. They looked harmless enough. "Classification recommendation 8, Volan asked his science officer. "Based on observed behavior patterns and physical characteristics, I would classify them as docile herbivores. Tier 3 intelligence," the science officer replied promptly. "They show signs of basic tool use and social organization, but their conflict resolution appears to be primarily diplomatic. Most observed gatherings are peaceful in nature. Physical examination suggests they evolved from prey animals rather than predators." Volan made the official entry in the ship's database. The planet would be designated as World 774 to see. Home to a species suitable for standard harvesting procedures. The Galactic Council's Department of Resource Acquisition would be very interested in this find. Several billion docile mammals with basic intelligence would provide excellent labor for the mining operations in the outer systems. "Send a message drone to Council Space," Volan ordered. "Inform them that we have located a Class 7 harvesting opportunity. Request standard collection fleet deployment." The message drone launched immediately, carrying news of the discovery back to Wara at the center of galactic civilization. It would take 3 weeks to reach Council space, and another 2 months for a proper harvesting fleet to arrive at World 774 to see. That would give the inhabitants plenty of time to continue their peaceful existence before being relocated to more useful positions within the galactic economy. Volan felt satisfied with the day's work. The exploration fleet would continue its survey of the outer spiral arm, while the bureaucrats and logistics specialists handled the routine work of processing another primitive world. He had seen dozens of similar planets during his career, and the procedures were always the same. Send in the fleet, broadcast surrender demands, collect the population, and move on to the next system. 6 weeks later, Admiral Keth received his deployment orders aboard the massive harvesting vessel Iron Talon. The ship was one of 50 vessels in the harvesting fleet, each one capable of holding thousands of specimens and equipped with the latest in pacification and transport technology. Admiral Keth had commanded successful harvesting operations on over 30 worlds during his career. Another group of primitive mammals, Admiral Keth muttered as he reviewed the survey data from World 774 to see. Why do they always look so similar? Soft skin, small size, no natural weapons. At least this collection should be routine. The fleet entered the target system exactly 8 weeks after the initial survey. 50 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and took positions around the blue planet. Admiral Keth activated the standard surrender broadcast system that would transmit his message to every communication device on the planet's surface. Inhabitants of World 774 to see, Admiral Keth's voice echoed across Earth in hundreds of different languages simultaneously. You have been selected for relocation and integration into the Galactic Council's Economic Development Program. Prepare for immediate collection. Resistance is futile and will result in unnecessary casualties. You have 12 hours to gather in designated areas for efficient transport. Admiral Keth settled back in his command chair and waited for the usual response. Panicked communications between population centers, desperate attempts to contact the fleet, and eventually formal surrender from whatever government the primitives had established. It was always the same pattern. But this time, something different happened. Silence. Every communication signal from the planet's surface stopped immediately. No radio chatter, no television broadcasts, no internet traffic. The entire electromagnetic spectrum went quiet, as if someone had thrown a switch and turned off an entire civilization. Admiral Keth frowned and leaned forward in his chair. Communications, are our translation protocols working correctly? Sir, all systems operating normally, came the reply. And why are they not responding? Unknown, sir. All planetary communications have ceased. No signals detected on any frequency. Admiral Keth had never encountered this situation before. Primitive species usually responded to first contact with either terror or curiosity, but never complete silence. Perhaps these mammals were even more primitive than the survey had indicated. Launch reconnaissance flights, Admiral Keth ordered. I want to know what is happening down there. Admiral Keth watched the reconnaissance reports flow across his command screen with growing confusion. The small scout ships had completed their first pass over the major population centers of World 774 to see, and the results made no sense at all. Sir, all major cities appear to be abandoned, reported Commander Tex from the lead scout vessel. We are detecting no movement in the streets, no vehicles in operation, and no signs of the inhabitants. It appears they have simply vanished. Admiral Keth studied the images streaming from the scout ships. Massive cities that had housed millions of beings just hours before now stood empty and silent. Streets that should have been filled with panicking crowds showed nothing but abandoned vehicles and empty buildings. Even more strange, the vehicles were not scattered randomly as they would be if the population had fled in terror. Instead, they were positioned in neat patterns that almost looked deliberate. Commander Tex, are you detecting any life signs at all? Admiral Keth asked. Motion sensors are picking up scattered readings from forested areas and mountainous regions, sir. It appears the population has retreated to wilderness areas, probably to hide in caves and natural shelters. Standard prey behavior when faced with superior predators. Admiral Keth nodded. That made more sense. The primitive mammals had probably never encountered advanced technology before and had reverted to their basic survival instincts. They would be hiding in whatever natural shelters they could find until the danger passed. It would make collection more difficult, but not impossible. Deploy landing forces to all major continents, Admiral Keth ordered. Standard search and collection procedures. Focus on areas with the highest concentration of life signs. These mammals cannot hide forever. Transport ships launched from the harvesting fleet and descended toward the planet's surface. Each transport carried a full company of experienced collection specialists equipped with stunning weapons, tracking equipment, and transport containers. Captain Drix commanded the largest landing force, assigned to sweep through what the survey data indicated was the most densely populated region on the planet. Captain Drix was a veteran of 20 successful collection operations. Stood 7 feet tall, with thick armored skin and 4 powerful arms that could easily subdue any primitive mammal. His species had evolved as apex predators on a world where strength and speed determined survival. Dealing with soft-skinned herbivores would be simple work. The transport ship landed in the center of what had once been a bustling city of over 10 million inhabitants. Captain Drix led his troops down the landing ramp and into the empty streets. The silence was unsettling. It's broken only by the sound of wind moving through abandoned buildings and the distant hum of machinery that apparently continued to operate even without supervision. Spread out in standard search formation, Captain. Drix ordered his troops. Thermal scanners indicate hundreds of life signs within a 5-kilometer radius. They are probably hiding in basements, sewers, and other underground spaces. Check every building systematically. The collection teams moved through the empty city with practiced efficiency. Their thermal imaging equipment clearly showed heat signatures scattered throughout the urban area, but actually locating the hiding mammals proved more challenging than expected. Every building seemed to have multiple basement levels and connecting tunnels that created a maze of potential hiding spots. Sergeant Gorth led a squad into a large structure that thermal readings indicated contained at least 20 life signs. The building appeared to be some kind of commercial center with multiple levels both above and below ground. As they moved through the empty corridors, Gorth noticed that many of the doors had been left partially open, creating sightlines that extended deep into the building's interior. Sir, these mammals seem to have prepared their hiding spots very carefully, Sergeant Gorth reported over his communication device.
No?
The building layout has been modified to create numerous concealed positions. It almost appears intentional rather than random panic behavior. Captain Drix paused in his own search to consider this observation. He had noticed similar patterns in other buildings his teams had entered. Furniture had been moved to create barriers and concealment, windows had been covered to block outside observation, and many doorways had been modified to narrow the passages. It was more sophisticated than typical prey behavior. Continue the search, Captain Drix ordered. Primitive species sometimes show surprising cunning when their survival is threatened. As the day progressed, the collection teams found their work increasingly frustrating. Despite clear thermal signatures indicating the presence of hundreds of mammals throughout the city, they had yet to make actual contact with a single individual. The heat signatures seemed to move through the buildings just ahead of the search teams, always staying one step beyond capture. Lieutenant Brix was leading a squad through what appeared to be a residential area when he noticed something that made him stop and examine his surroundings more carefully. The abandoned vehicles in the streets were not randomly scattered as he had first assumed. They were positioned to create natural barriers that forced his squad to move in single file. Through narrow passages between buildings, Captain Drix, I think these mammals may be more clever than we initially assessed, Lieutenant Brix reported. The positioning of vehicles and debris appears to be channeling our movement along specific routes. It almost seems like they want us to go in certain directions. Captain Drix felt the first stirring of unease. In his 20 operations, he had never encountered prey species that showed this level of tactical thinking. Usually, primitive mammals either cowered in obvious hiding spots or ran blindly in random directions. The systematic evacuation and Apparent preparation suggested intelligence levels higher than indicated in the original survey. All teams maintain heightened awareness, Captain Drix broadcast to his troops. These mammals may possess greater cunning than anticipated. Continue searches, but report any unusual observations immediately. The thermal signatures continued to dance just out of reach as collection teams moved through the empty city. Buildings seemed to contain dozens of hiding spots, and the heat readings suggested the mammals were moving through connecting passages that allowed them to stay hidden while observing the search teams. It was almost as if they were being watched and studied rather than simply hiding in fear as evening approached. Captain Drix realized that his entire day of searching had produced 0 captures. Despite clear evidence that hundreds of mammals were present in the immediate area, his teams had covered dozens of buildings and investigated hundreds of potential hiding spots. But the inhabitants seemed to vanish like smoke whenever the collection specialists got close. Sir, thermal readings indicate movement on multiple levels of this structure, reported Corporal Vex from inside a tall building near the city center. But every time we move toward a heat signature, it disappears and reappears somewhere else in the building. It is almost like they are using hidden passages to stay ahead of us. Captain Drix studied his tactical display showing the positions of all his teams throughout the city. The pattern of movement from the thermal signatures was starting to look less like random hiding and more like coordinated observation. The mammals seemed to know exactly where each search team was located and were positioning themselves to maintain visual contact while avoiding capture. For the first time in his career, Captain Drix began to wonder if he was hunting prey or if the prey was studying him. The first shot came from somewhere high above the forest canopy, where Hunting Party 7 is conducting their sweep through the dense woodland. Sergeant Kalo heard the sharp crack of a projectile weapon followed immediately by the thud of something heavy hitting the ground behind him. Contact Kalo shouted into his communication device as he dove behind the nearest tree. Trooper Hex is down. Single shot from elevated position, direction unknown. Captain Drix received the transmission back at the command post he had established. In the empty city center, after 3 days of fruitless searching through abandoned buildings, he had deployed his forces into the surrounding wilderness areas, where thermal scanners showed the largest concentrations of mammal life signs. Hunting Party 7, report your status, Captain Drix ordered. We are pinned down by accurate fire from multiple concealed positions, Sergeant Kalo replied, his voice tight with stress. Every time one of my troops attempts to move, they take fire from a different direction. These mammals are not running away, sir. They are fighting back. Captain Drix felt his confidence wavering. In 20 collection operations across dozens of worlds, he had never encountered organized resistance from primitive species. Prey animals were supposed to hide or flee, not coordinate attacks against superior forces. Can you identify their positions? Captain Drix asked. Negative, sir. They are using the forest terrain to remain completely hidden. We can hear their projectile weapons firing, but we cannot locate the shooters. Request immediate air support and reinforcement. Before Captain Drix could respond, his communication system lit up with reports from hunting parties across the continent. Team after team was reporting contact with hostile forces, accurate enemy fire, and casualties among the collection specialists. The soft-skinned mammals were not cowering in caves as expected. They were fighting. All units, this is Captain Drix. He broadcast to his scattered forces. We are facing organized resistance from the local population. Implement combat protocols immediately. Use maximum force to neutralize any threats. Hunting Party 7 was discovering that implementing combat protocols was easier said than done. Sergeant Kalo and his remaining troops found themselves trapped in a carefully prepared kill zone where every possible movement was covered by enemy fire. The forest around them had been turned into a maze of overlapping firing positions that made advance or retreat equally dangerous. Sir, I count at least 12 different shooting positions in a 300-meter radius around our location, reported Trooper Mars, the team's tactical analyst. But I have not seen a single enemy combatant. They're firing from concealed positions and moving between locations without being observed. Sergeant Kalo tried to process this information. His species had evolved as pack hunters with excellent vision and hearing. But these mammals seemed to disappear and reappear at will. Every time his troops tried to suppress one firing position, shots would come from a completely different direction. Are they moving without being detected? Kalo wondered aloud. The answer came in the form of more coordinated fire that forced his entire squad to remain motionless behind whatever cover they could find. The mammals had clearly prepared these woodland areas for exactly this type of encounter. Every tree, rock, and depression in the ground seemed to be part of an integrated defensive system. Meanwhile, Hunting Party 12 was experiencing similar difficulties in what had appeared to be abandoned suburban terrain. Lieutenant Nex had led his troops into a residential area where thermal readings indicated a significant mammal presence, only to find himself caught in an elaborate trap. Captain Drick's Hunting Party 12 is taking heavy casualties, Lieutenant. Nex reported from behind an overturned vehicle that provided his only cover. The mammals have turned this entire neighborhood into a battle zone. Every house contains firing positions, and they are using underground tunnels to move between buildings without being seen. Captain Drick studied his tactical display with growing alarm. Red indicators showed that more than half of his hunting parties were engaged in active combat, and casualty reports were mounting rapidly. The primitive mammals were not only fighting back, they were winning. "Sir, we need to understand what we are facing here," reported Commander Tex from his aerial reconnaissance vessel. "I am observing the combat zones from above, and the enemy tactics are far more sophisticated than indicated in our intelligence reports. They are using coordinated fire and movement, prepared positions, what appears to be real-time battlefield communication." Captain Drix activated his long-range communication system to contact Admiral Keth aboard the Iron Talon. This situation had moved far beyond a routine collection operation. "Admiral, we have a significant problem," Captain Drix reported. "The local population is offering organized military resistance. We are taking heavy casualties, and our forces are being systematically neutralized by enemy action." Admiral Keth stared at his communication screen in disbelief. Impossible. The survey data clearly indicated a docile herbivore species with primitive technology. How can they be offering effective resistance against our advanced forces? "I believe our initial assessment was incorrect," Captain Drix replied. "These mammals are demonstrating military capabilities that suggest extensive combat experience and training. They know exactly how to use their terrain against us, and their marksmanship is extremely accurate." As if to emphasize the point, another urgent transmission came through from Hunting Party 3. "All remaining units, this is Sergeant Boom. My entire squad has been eliminated except for myself. The enemy is using projectile weapons with extreme accuracy at ranges exceeding 1,000 meters. They are hitting our troops with single shots despite our armor and superior size." Admiral Keth felt the first cold touch of real fear. His harvesting fleet had conquered dozens of worlds without serious resistance, but none of those worlds had produced warriors capable of defeating his best troops in direct combat. "Captain Drix, what is your tactical assessment of the situation?" Admiral Keth asked. "Sir, we are not hunting prey," Captain Drix replied grimly. "We are being hunted. These mammals have turned every urban area into a complex ambush site and every wilderness area into a sniper's paradise. They know this terrain better than we ever will, and they are using that knowledge to systematically destroy our forces." The communication channel filled with more urgent reports as hunting parties across the planet found themselves outmaneuvered and outfought by an enemy they could barely see. The mammals were using tactics that spoke of generations of warfare experience, and they were applying those tactics with deadly precision against forces that had expected easy victory. "Admiral, request immediate evacuation of all ground forces," Captain Drix transmitted. "We cannot complete this collection operation. The resistance is too organized and too effective. These are not primitive herbivores, sir. These are apex predators, and we have entered their hunting ground." Admiral Keth stared out at the blue planet that had seemed so peaceful just days before. Somewhere down there, soft-skinned mammals were systematically destroying a military force that had conquered star systems. He was beginning to understand that the Galactic Council had made a terrible mistake in their assessment of World 7742-C. The hunters had become the hunted, and the prey was showing no mercy. Admiral Keth sat in his command chair aboard the Iron Talon and watched his invasion force crumble before his eyes. The tactical display showed red warning indicators across every continent of World 774 to see, as hunting party after hunting party reported complete destruction or was simply lost to enemy action. In 48 hours, its ground forces had been reduced from 3,000 elite troops to fewer than 200 survivors scattered across the planet. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," reported communications. Officer Drex. "It appears to be coming from the mammals themselves." Admiral Keth straightened in his chair. "Put it through." The main viewing screen flickered to life, showing a human male seated behind what appeared to be a simple wooden desk. The creature looked unremarkable in every way, with soft pink skin, small eyes, and no visible weapons or armor. He could have been one of the peaceful farmers the survey team had observed just weeks earlier. "Greetings, Admiral Keth," the human said in perfectly clear Galactic Standard language. "My name is General Smith, and I represent the Unified Military Command of Earth. I believe you are beginning to understand that your initial assessment of our species was somewhat inaccurate." Admiral Keth stared at the screen in shock. "How do you know my name? How do you speak our language?" General Smith smiled, showing small white teeth that looked nothing like the fangs of a predator species. "We have been monitoring your communications. Since you arrived in our system, your language is not particularly difficult to learn when you have had several weeks to study it. As for knowing your name, we make it our business to know our enemies before we engage them." "Your enemies?" "Admiral," Keth repeated. "We came here to offer you integration into the galactic community." "You came here to enslave us," General Smith replied calmly. "Your surrender broadcast made that quite clear. What you fail to understand is that humans do not make good slaves. We have a saying on Earth: those who would trade freedom for security deserve neither. We chose to fight." Admiral Keth activated his personal recording system. The Galactic Council would need to see this conversation to understand what had gone wrong with the operation. "You are a primitive species with basic technology. How did you develop such effective military capabilities?" General Smith leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. Admiral, let me educate you about human history. For the past 10,000 years, we have been engaged in continuous warfare against members of our own species. Every generation has fought wars using increasingly sophisticated weapons and tactics. We have fought with spears, swords, bows, guns, explosives, chemical weapons, and nuclear devices. We have developed military strategies that account for every possible terrain and situation. The general paused and gestured to something off-screen. Every human settlement on Earth has been practicing for an invasion scenario for decades. Every adult human has received basic military training. Every child learns tactics and survival skills as part of their education. We do not have a military, Admiral. We are a military. Admiral Keth felt his confidence crumbling as he began to understand the magnitude of his error. But your cities appeared peaceful. Your people seemed to be engaged in agriculture and commerce. "Of course they did," General Smith replied. "Do you think we would reveal our true capabilities to unknown observers? When your survey probes arrived, we immediately implemented planetary security protocols. Every human on Earth was briefed on the situation and given specific instructions for dealing with a potential invasion." The general stood and walked to a large window that showed a view of the surrounding landscape. "You see, Admiral, humans are persistence hunters. We evolved to track our prey across vast distances, to study their behavior patterns, and to coordinate our attacks for maximum effectiveness. When we detected your survey probes, we did exactly what we have always done. We studied you." Admiral Keth watched in fascination as General Smith continued his explanation. "We analyzed your technology, your communication protocols, your military formations, and your tactical assumptions. We discovered that you classify species based on whether they evolved as predators or prey, and we realized that you had placed us in the wrong category. You appear to be herbivores," Admiral Keth protested weakly. General Smith laughed, a sound that sent chills down Admiral Keth's spine. "Humans are omnivores, Admiral. We eat both plants and meat. But more importantly, we are apex predators. We have hunted every large animal on our planet to near extinction. We have fought wars against our own species that killed millions of individuals. We have developed weapons capable of destroying entire continents. The general returned to his desk and activated a display screen that showed images of human warfare throughout history. These are scenes from our recent conflicts. Notice the coordination, the tactical sophistication, the systematic application of violence to achieve strategic objectives. Every human alive today is descended from warriors who survived thousands of years of constant warfare. Admiral Keth stared at the images with growing horror. Massive battles involving millions of combatants. Weapons that could destroy cities, and tactical maneuvers of incredible complexity. This was not the work of peaceful farmers. Your hunting parties made a critical error, General Smith continued. They assumed that, because we evacuated our cities, we were hiding in fear. In reality, we were implementing a defensive strategy that has been planned and practiced for generations. Every urban area on Earth has been prepared as a battlefield. Every wilderness area has been mapped and fortified. We were not running from you, Admiral. We were leading you into our killing zones. The full scope of the disaster became clear. To Admiral Keth, as he processed this information, his forces had not been hunting primitive prey animals. They had been walking into carefully prepared ambushes set by a species that had turned warfare into an art form. What do you want from us? Admiral Keth asked. General Smith returned to his chair and looked directly into the camera. We want you to understand that Earth is not available for harvesting. We want you to understand that humans are not prey animals. And we want you to deliver a message to your Galactic Council. What message? Tell them that Earth extends an offer of mutual cooperation and trade between equals. Tell them that we are interested in joining the galactic community as partners, not as subjects. And tell them that any future attempts to treat us as prey will be met with the same response. You have experienced here. General Smith leaned forward slightly. You've lost over 90% of your ground forces, Admiral. Your remaining troops are trapped in defensive positions across our planet with no hope of extraction. I am offering you a choice. Surrender. Now, and we will allow your survivors to return to your ships. Continue fighting, and we will eliminate every member of your invasion force. Admiral Keth looked at his tactical display one more time. The red indicators showed the truth of General Smith's words. His mighty harvesting fleet had been reduced to scattered survivors by creatures he had dismissed as harmless herbivores. We surrender, Admiral Keth said quietly. The surrender protocol began exactly 1 hour after Admiral Keth transmitted his capitulation to General Smith. Across Earth's continents, human forces emerged from their concealed positions with military precision that left the surviving alien troops stunned. What had seemed like empty wilderness and abandoned cities suddenly revealed themselves to be carefully constructed military installations. Captain Drix watched in amazement as human soldiers appeared from positions that had been invisible just moments before. Underground bunkers opened to reveal command centers that had been coordinating the entire planetary defense. Camouflaged fighting positions that had seemed like natural forest features were revealed to be sophisticated fortifications. The entire planet had been one massive military base disguised as a peaceful agricultural world. Sir, how many of them are there? Asked Sergeant Kalo as he observed hundreds of human soldiers emerging from the forest around his trapped position. Captain. Drix studied the disciplined formations moving through the trees with practiced efficiency. Each human carried advanced weapons that, while primitive by galactic standards, had proven devastatingly effective against his forces. More importantly, they moved with the coordinated precision of professional warriors who had trained together for years. I count at least 500 in our immediate area, Captain Drix replied. But thermal scans suggest there are thousands more throughout this forest region alone. The humans approached the surrounded alien forces with weapons ready, but without obvious hostility. A human female wearing military insignia stepped forward and addressed the aliens in their own language. I am Colonel Davis, she announced. You will surrender your weapons and equipment immediately. Any attempt to resist will be met with lethal force. Follow all instructions precisely, and you will be treated according to the established rules of warfare. Captain Drix had never heard of established rules of warfare, but he was in no position to argue. His surviving troops began placing their weapons on the ground while human soldiers moved forward to collect them. The efficiency of the operation suggested that the humans had practiced prisoner management procedures extensively. Similar scenes were playing out across the planet as the remnants of the once mighty harvesting fleet found themselves at the mercy of the species they had come to collect. Admiral Keth received reports from his scattered forces as they were systematically rounded up and processed, human military units that seemed to materialize from the landscape itself.
Admiral,
This is Lieutenant Nex reporting from the suburban zone. Came one transmission. The humans have revealed that every house in this neighborhood was connected by underground tunnels, turned an entire residential area into a military fortress without changing its appearance from above. The level of preparation is beyond anything I have ever encountered. Admiral Keth forwarded these reports to the Galactic Council along with his official surrender documents. The bureaucrats and logistics specialists who had planned this routine collection operation needed to understand the magnitude of their miscalculation. World 774-C was not a primitive agricultural planet populated by docile herbivores. It was a fortress world inhabited by apex predators who had disguised their true nature until the moment of contact. 3 days after the surrender, General Smith arrived at the temporary detention facility that had been established to house the captured alien forces. The site had appeared to be an empty field just days before, but had transformed into a fully functional military prison with barracks, medical facilities, and communication centers. The speed and efficiency of the construction left no doubt. About human organizational capabilities, General Smith walked through the detention area, accompanied by several other human officers. The captured aliens watched him with a mixture of fear and fascination as he inspected their living conditions and spoke with medical personnel treating the wounded. Admiral Keth, General Smith called out as he approached the command section where the senior alien officers were being held. I trust you, and your people are being treated appropriately. Admiral Keth rose from his sitting position on what appeared to be a comfortable sleeping platform. The humans had provided adequate food, medical care, and shelter for their prisoners, which was more consideration than the Galactic Council typically showed to conquered populations. Your treatment of prisoners is more generous than we expected, Admiral Keth admitted. Most species would have simply eliminated captured invaders. General Smith nodded thoughtfully. Humans have learned through bitter experience that how you treat your enemies often determines how they treat you in return. We believe in showing mercy to defeated opponents who surrender honorably. What happens to us now? Admiral Keth asked. You and your people will be returned to your ships and allowed to depart Earth's system, General Smith replied. However, you will carry a message back to the Galactic Council. Earth is hereby declaring its independence from any external authority in its intention to join the galactic community as a sovereign power. General Smith activated a portable display device that showed images of human technology and industrial capabilities. Our initial assessment suggests that we possess manufacturing capacity, natural resources, and technological innovation that would be valuable to galactic trade networks. We are prepared to offer these resources in exchange for formal recognition of Earth's status as an independent world. Admiral Keth studied the images with growing amazement. Hidden beneath the agricultural facade, Earth possessed industrial facilities that rivaled those of established galactic civilizations. The humans had not only disguised their military capabilities, they had concealed their technological advancement as well. The Council will want to know about your military strength, Admiral Keth said. Of course they will, General Smith replied. You may inform them that Earth maintains defensive forces sufficient to protect our interests. Any future contact with our world will be conducted through proper diplomatic channels between equal parties. The General paused and looked directly at Admiral Keth. You may also inform them that humans are very interested in exploring the galaxy. We have been confined to a single star system for our entire history, and we are eager to see what opportunities exist among the stars. Admiral Keth felt a chill at the implications of that statement. If humans were this formidable when defending their homeworld, What would they be capable of when they ventured into space with offensive intentions? You mentioned that you are apex predators, Admiral Keth said carefully. What does that mean? For species like mine, General Smith smiled, but this time, the expression carried a hint of something that made Admiral Keth's blood run cold. That depends entirely on whether those species choose to treat us as equals or as prey. Humans can be excellent allies or terrible enemies. The choice belongs to the Galactic Council. 2 weeks later, Admiral Keth's battered fleet limped back into Council space carrying news that would reshape galactic politics forever. The bureaucrats who had planned a routine harvesting operation found themselves facing the emergence of a new apex predator species that possessed both the capability and the apparent intention to expand beyond their home system. Emergency sessions were called as the Council struggled to understand how their intelligence networks had so completely failed to identify the true nature of World 774-C. More importantly, they needed to decide how to respond to Earth's demand for recognition as an independent power. Some Council members advocated for immediate military action to eliminate the human threat before it could spread beyond their system. Others argued for diplomatic engagement with a species that had demonstrated both military prowess and a preference for negotiation over annihilation. The debate continued as reports arrived of strange signals originating from the Earth system. The humans appeared to be rapidly developing space-based technology and were conducting tests of vessels capable of interstellar travel. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth had not trained farmers and shepherds. Earth had trained hunters, and those hunters were preparing to explore new territories among the stars.